Monga begins by showing a high school teenager who is on his way to his new school in Monga, one of the districts in Taipei. The teenager, named Wenzi, was a quiet student, and because of that, he was often bullied at his old schools, causing him to change schools 3 times in just the past 2 years. But things haven't changed much at his new school. On his first day alone, Wenzi was bullied by his classmates who told him to prepare money for their class delinquent, Go. As if that wasn't enough, at lunchtime, Go grabbed the chicken thighs that Wenzi was about to eat. Here, Wenzi felt that he had been bullied more than enough. If he kept quiet, people would definitely continue to harass him in this new school. So he decided to muster up his courage and fight back by taking back his lunch from Go. Obviously, being the big bully at school, Go didn't like what Wenzi was doing. So he gathered his gangmates, and then they waited for Wenzi in front of the school when class was over, intending to punish him for humiliating him. Their intentions were very clear even to Wenzi, who ran away as soon as he saw them waiting for him. And so, a chase ensued between them. After running for a while, Go and his friends finally managed to catch Wenzi under the bridge, where they beat him up to make him aware of his position in the school hierarchy. But at this moment, Wenzi accidentally stepped on dog poop, which he then used to threaten his beaters. Wenzi's ridiculous action was seen by Go's rival gang, who happened to be gathered not far from the scene. And the leader of the gang, Zilong, is interested in recruiting Wenzi into his gang after seeing how he can escape his beaters. The next day at school, as he walked towards his class, Wenzi was stopped by Zilong and his 3 friends, who invited him to join them. Wenzi knew from experience that if he wanted to survive, he had to have friends who could make him stronger than his enemies. So he accepted their offer and officially joined the gang that controlled the school. To celebrate Wenzi joining their gang, they then took Gao and his gang to the school roof, intending to pay back their torture of Wenzi yesterday. But instead of ganging up on them, Zilong asked Wenzi to beat them up. After all, he was the one who Gao and his friends beat, and he was the one who had to avenge them as well. Without much ado, Wenzi carried out the order. He beats up Gao and his gang one by one and even throws Goku's signature move on them. However, it was only in his mind, because Wenzi himself still didn't dare actually to beat them up. Only after Sung motivated him, then he started hitting them all. He knew that they would beat him later if he didn't beat them now. Sometime after joining the gang, Wenzi often began to skip school and get into fights with other gangs. And in doing it all, he is always with his 4 new friends. The 4 people in question are Zilong, the gang leader and son of a triad boss who controls the Monga district. Then there is Sung, the bald boy who has been Zilong's best friend since they were little. The third is Apo, who claims to be the most handsome man in their gang. And thanks to his good looks, he has dated 107 women so far. But again, that's just his claim, and it's up to you to believe it or not. Just look at his face. Do you think he's that handsome? Anyway, the last one was Bai Hao, who used to be the same as Wenzi, often bullied by people his age. Their only difference was that Bai Hao dared fight his bullies when he was only 10. And since then, it was Bai Hao who was beating people up, not the other way around. A few weeks after his transfer to his new school, Wenzi had transformed entirely into a delinquent like his 4 friends, leaving his mother sad, especially when she found out that her son often skipped school and got into fights, to the point that the school sent him a warning letter. But instead of changing his behavior, Wenzi went true again because his 4 friends wanted to celebrate his birthday. Zilong even bought him new clothes before taking him to the nightclub. But Zilong and the others felt it wouldn't be good if they didn't prank the birthday boy. So that night, they told Wenzi to buy food for Miao Cao at the Monga market, and he had to say that name when he ordered food. Wenzi himself didn't know that Miao Cao was a triad outside of Monga. As a result, local residents who thought he was a member of Miao Cao spontaneously hunted him down because, after all, they were loyal to Zilong's father. But Wenzi was not angry with his friends who had pranked him. On the contrary, they grew closer to each other, to the point that they decided to go to a temple to take the oath of brotherhood. So if any of them betrayed the group, the others would kill him. With their relationship getting stronger, Zilong invited Wenzi and the others to eat at his house. And this is where Wenzi first met Zilong's father, Geta. Although, he turned out to be very different from what he had imagined. He wasn't scary at all for a triad boss. In fact, he actually looks very friendly and warm. But Wenzi's view of Geta changed drastically when they ate together because, at that moment, Geta's men brought him a finger from the person who dared to betray him. One day, Wenzi and his friends came to the restaurant to accompany Zilong on a date with his girlfriend. But instead of having fun, the two fought because Zilong cared more about his friends than spending more time with her. Incidentally, Go was near the restaurant and saw how things were between Zilong and his girlfriend. Finally, he thought he got a chance to take revenge on him. To that end, he approaches Zilong's girlfriend after she leaves the restaurant and, claiming to be Zilong's friend, takes her to a deserted place where he then does the unthinkable. The next day, Zilong was furious when he heard what Gao had done to his girlfriend. So as night fell, he and his friends caught Gao before taking him to their base, where He Sung then glued his eyes, nose, and mouth. His cruelty made even Wenzi go into shock. He didn't expect He Sung and the others to do such a cruel thing. And his worries became real the next day. They found Gao died of suffocation after his nostrils and mouth were glued together. No doubt, Geta punished them for their foolishness in killing someone over a trivial matter. But while Geta was lecturing them, He Sung suddenly asked Geta to punish him alone. He claims to be the sole person responsible for Gao's death, and thus Geta must release his 4 innocent friends. Hearing that, a furious Geta beat him so badly that he fainted. But Geta felt that was not enough for them. He then orders the 5 friends to a secluded martial arts training ground in the mountains. They will undergo intensive training according to the traditions of the city's founders. The training was not only to cultivate a sense of discipline, but also to prepare them to face those who wanted to take revenge on them. After several weeks of strenuous training, Geta picked them up home and then decided to celebrate their success through the tough training by hosting a party. Here, Wenzi began to feel the kindness of Geta. He never knew his birth father, but through Geta, he finally got to know what it was like to have a father. At this party, Geta invited several of his allies to enliven the atmosphere, one of which was Masa. For your information, Geta and Masa were previously fierce rivals fighting for control of Monga. But now, they have reconciled and become close allies. After all, they had something in common, which their refusal to cooperate with triads outside the city. But unexpectedly, a confidant of Masa, Boon Kyong, brought a triad boss from out of town to the party instead. Needless to say, the foreign triad boss, whose name was Hui Long, tried to persuade Geta and Masa to open themselves up to triads from out of town and work together with them. That way, they can expand their territory, which will give them a lot of extra cash. But of course, Geta and Masa refused the offer. They were satisfied with the territory they now had in Monga, and in addition, cooperating with outside triads was a taboo for them. Knowing that his plan to persuade Geta and Masa failed miserably, Hui Long thought about killing them both. And here, Boon Kyong did not reject the plan at all, because he had planned to betray Masa from the start and wrest control of the gang from him. So to make his plan work, Boon Kyong tries to persuade He Sung to kill Geta. And even though he initially refused, He Sung couldn't help but obey his orders because he felt he owed Boon Kyong his life. Indeed, Boon Kyong once saved him when he was ganged up on by another gang. Moreover, He Sung agreed with Boon Kyong's view that Monga would never be able to thrive if they continued to rely on swords and bare hands, which was exactly the tradition that Geta and Masa had always kept. They have always refused to use firearms all along because they think only losers rely on them. After successfully persuading He Sung to join his plan, Boon Kyong began executing his plan one night by killing Masa. Then, he goes to Geta, who is still in shock over the death of his close ally, and tries to influence him, saying that another group killed Masa. If Geta wants to avenge Masa's death, Boon Kyong demands Geta to help him find the killers. Later that night, when Geta was at the temple, Boon Kyong ordered his men to spread hoaxes to Geta's camp that the killers of Masa had been found. Therefore, Geta had to send his men to help them catch the killers, which he agreed to. Without a second thought, he sent all his men to catch the killer group. But this was precisely what Boon Kyong had been waiting for. Once Geta was alone in the temple, 4 of his men came to the place pretending to be civilians who wanted to pray at the temple. Then, when Geta was caught off guard, they immediately attacked him. Geta, who was naturally good at fighting, could subdue the 4 alone. But He Sung knew, no matter how tough he was, Geta was powerless in the face of firearms. So he entered the temple with a gun and shot him dead. It just so happened that at this time, Wenzi was near the temple. So as soon as he heard gunshots from the direction of the shrine, he rushed towards it. But unfortunately, he came too late. Geta was already lying lifeless on the temple floor. The next day, Wenzi becomes the ceremonial master at Geta's funeral, as Zilong has gone into hiding to avoid the assassins who might be after him after they managed to kill his father. But still, He Sung knew Zilong and the others wouldn't be completely safe as long as they were still in Monga. So when the 5 of them gathered at their base, he advised Zilong, Wenzi, Bai Hao, and Apo to hide in the Philippines until things returned to normal in Monga. Yes, despite his betrayal, He Sung still cares about his friends. After thinking for a moment, all of his friends agreed to go to the Philippines, except for Wenzi, who still wanted to stay in Monga to find the killer of Geta, whom he considered his own father. Wenzi still didn't know who the killers were, but he began to suspect He Sung had something to do with the murder of the 2 triad bosses. After all, He Sung told them to run away, but why did he stay in Monga? It was very strange for Wenzi. But it turned out that it wasn't only Wenzi who wanted to find the killers. That night, when everyone was asleep, Bai Hao sneaked out to look for Geta's killer, whom he suspected was Boon Kyong. So he went to his headquarters to seek information and confront him. But unfortunately, he came to the place just as Boon Kyong was meeting Hui Long. He was still lucky they didn't kill him and just beat him half to death, although he had to be hospitalized as a result. After what happened to Bai Hao, Sung kept telling Wenzi to go to the Philippines with Zilong and Apo. But the more Sung forced him to leave, the more Wenzi's suspicions about him grew. So he decides to try to trick Sung by pretending to agree to go to the Philippines. Then, Wenzi meets Huilong, who turns out to be his mother's ex-boyfriend. He felt that if he took revenge for Geta's death, he would die, so he went to Huilong to ask him to take care of his mother after he left. Indeed, Wenzi had already made up his mind to take revenge. Even though Huilong had tried his best to stop him, he still left. Later that night, Huilong went to Wenzi's house only to find his mother. And this is when it was finally revealed that Huilong was actually Wenzi's birth father. All this time, Wenzi's mother had always kept the truth from him for some reason. Likewise for Huilong, he just found out that Wenzi is his son, and knowing that his son intended to die for revenge, Huilong rushed off to find him. Meanwhile, except for Bai Hao, Wenzi is currently at the temple with his friends. He did ask them to stop by the temple, arguing that they should pray together before going to the Philippines. But that's just an excuse. As soon as they finished praying, Wenzi immediately pointed a knife at Sung's neck, demanding that he admit that he had killed Geta and Masa. Wenzi himself was certain that Sung was indeed involved in the murder of the two triad bosses. For the past few days, he had been tailing Sung secretly, and he discovered how Sung interacted with Huilong and Boon Kiong as if they were partners at work. Finally, with a knife pointed to his neck, Sung admits that he was the one who killed Geta. But he claims to be doing it for the good of Monga and to prepare the way for Zilong to lead the gang in the future. However, in this tension, Boon Kiong and his men suddenly barged into the temple and attacked them. As a result, Wenzi, Zilong, and Apo had to postpone their interrogation of Sung as they now had to fight back against Boon Kiong's men. While the three of them were fighting, Sung just stood watching. He felt a huge dilemma, whether he should help his friends or Boon Kiong. But after he saw how his friends were fighting with all their might, he decided to help the cornered Zilong. And with one swift motion, he slashed his sword at Boon Kiong and cut off his ear. At the same time, police sirens are heard approaching the temple, and Sung feels this is his chance to escape before Wenzi catches him. But Wenzi saw him running away, and so he quickly stopped what he was doing before chasing after him. He couldn't just let the traitor run away. Sung had to die in his hands tonight. But in the end, Sung managed to escape Wenzi's pursuit. Wasting no time, he went to their gang's headquarters and took a gun, which he then used to shoot Wenzi. As Wenzi knelt before him with gunshot wounds to the body, Sung blamed Wenzi. If only he had just taken his word and gone to the Philippines, none of this would have happened, and they would still be friends. As if aware that he would die soon, Wenzi asked Sung to hug him one last time, which Sung agreed to do out of pity. But then again, it's just a trap. As soon as Sung hugged him, Wenzi immediately took out a knife and stabbed him in the back. Angry at being cheated on, Sung then reshoots Wenzi while explaining that Geta is not as good as he thought. Geta and Sung's father used to be good friends, but in the end, Geta cut off his arm, and Sung still couldn't forgive him for that. But as soon as he finished saying that, Zilong suddenly appeared from behind and stabbed Sung so many times that he lay dead right next to Wenzi, the person who had been his close friend. The film closes by showing a flashback to when the five friends were still together, laughing while having fun. The moral that can be learned from this movie is, betrayal inevitably breeds hatred. And this movie shows very well how the result of that hatred. Although, that was just an extreme example of it.